It may be the first week of Black History Month, but
another blackface scandal turning Virginia politics into a crisis.
It's Black History Month, which may have got buried under the plethora of daily blackface stories that we are seeing recently, or the ever so timely release of Esquire's latest profile highlighting the overlooked young white male in society. Because what better way to kick off the only month of the year dedicated to raising black voices, right? Well, going against the grain of those mentioned above, I thought it'd be cool to highlight some stories that maybe you haven't heard of, or maybe you have. This one, actually, my mum brought to my attention from way back in Scotland. So today, I'm going to talk about Robert Smalls.
This is the story of Robert Smalls.
Someone who bet everything he had and everything he was on everything he dreamed of.
Born into slavery on a South Carolina plantation, as a youngster, Smalls worked at the docks in Charleston Harbor, sending his earnings, of course, back to his master. But while he gave up what he earned, he managed to get the most he could out of his time spent working around ships. He studied them, how they came and went from the port, the signals the captains used as they entered the dock or left. And after such rigorous study, by the time the Civil War came around, Smalls was a pretty experienced seaman. So he was assigned to steer a Confederate Navy vessel called the Planter, which consisted of mostly white officers and a number of slaves. Impressed by his competency and the lengths he would go to in order to demonstrate how trustworthy he could be, Smalls was able to maneuver his way around this vessel. But little did those Confederate soldiers know, he was actually hatching at an elaborate plan to escape from slavery and deal a blow to the Confederacy. And he'd also secretly recruited most of the enslaved crew in his plot. So on one particular night when the Planter had docked in Charleston, stacked with a shipment full of heavy weaponry, Smalls decided this was the perfect night to enact the plan he'd been cooking up. So when those officers went ashore for the evening and left the ship in the care of the enslaved crew, Smalls led this crew in hijacking the vessel. They made one stop at another set of docks to pick up the families of Smalls and other crew members who waited in hiding after being notified of the scheme in advance.
Smalls knew these waters like the back of his hand, but he also knew the risks that lay ahead.
With Smalls at the helm, they navigated the waters with their destination being, of course, freedom. But they weren't in the clear, as they still had to sail past a number of Confederate checkpoints on their way to freedom. But this is where Smalls' past studying would play a crucial role. All those years watching the ship captains, learning their hand signals and the particular ones they used at the checkpoints. So he strapped on the captain's uniform and trademark straw hat, and he guided the Planter past 5 Confederate harbor ports by impersonating the captain and displaying the correct hand signals. By the time anyone had realized the Planter had gone missing, it was too far gone to catch. Once in the clear from the Confederate checkpoints, he had his crew replace the Confederate flags aboard the ship with white ones, which again would prove to be another crucial decision, seeing as they were soon intercepted by a Union vessel with their fingers on the trigger, but once they saw the white flags, they withdrew their weapons. The Union sailors, most likely baffled at the sight of an all-black crew, most likely were still suspicious until Robert Smalls came forward and, according to history records, shouted, "Good morning, sir, I've brought you some of the old United States guns." He then asked the Union soldiers to give him a United States flag, which he raised on the Planter. As far as stories go, this one should be well on its way to Hollywood. If someone's not wrote it yet, I'm gonna do it. But yet, it still gets better. Because of his bravery, Smalls was promoted to captain himself, becoming one of the highest ranking and highest paid black officers in the Civil War. After being celebrated for his immense bravery, Smalls then turned to activism after his military career ended, using all that he learned to educate former slaves, and later, realizing he still wasn't finished, Robert Smalls entered politics, serving in the South Carolina legislature before becoming one of the first black people elected to the US House of Representatives in 1874. He remained active in public life until the 20th century. One prominent case that is brought up in regards to Smalls is in 1913 he prevented the lynching of 2 black men accused of murder in his town by warning the mayor that the local black population would burn the city to the ground if the mob was not stopped. And then in one last grand gesture, Smalls purchased the plantation where he'd grown up a slave and lived there until his death in 1915. Inscribed on the monument at his grave is the quote, "My race needs no special defense, for the past history of them in this country proves them to be equal of any people anywhere. All they need is an equal chance in the battle of life. And the thing I realized about this amazing story was that after I heard it, I immediately told anyone and everyone who would listen. And to no surprise, most did not know of this story. Everyone knows about Columbus or Jefferson Hill. More people are familiar with Stonewall Jackson's favorite meal than this story, which is partly one of the reasons why I'm so perplexed as to why there's only 1 month a year dedicated to highlighting these stories and highlighting Black history in general. They should be taught daily, absorbed and highlighted in every school across the country. So I want to thank Jason Rains on Facebook for this post that captured my mum's attention and then mine. I hope this post helps amplify Robert Small's story. For more on this, come over to my Instagram at Francis M. Maxwell. Would love to hear what you think of this incredible story. Support independent media here, tyt.com/join. Want to see more videos like this? Then subscribe to the TYT channel below. And don't forget to become a TYT member. Get access for as little as $4.99 a month. Download the TYT Plus app on your phone or head over to tyt.com/join today.